What if I told you that a single word in your marketing could be costing you millions of dollars in lost deals? See, one of the biggest secrets in marketing is that words aren't just words, they are tools. Tools that can be very cleverly engineered to shape perception. And this video is for the leaders in the building and construction materials industry because you need to pay very close attention to the words that you use to describe your brand and to describe your products. There's a good chance that you're getting this dangerously wrong. This is especially true if you're selling non-traditional building materials. If you're selling solutions that are innovative, if you're selling off-site construction materials, anything that's prefabricated or using smart technology, what we know is that the construction industry is famously risk averse. So the trust that you have spent years and years building could be eroded just based on word choice alone. And so as I walk through these examples, what I want you to really remember is that when it comes to marketing, perception is more important than reality. And I'm not asking that you overhaul your entire vocabulary. That's not the point. You just need to be deeply intentional about the words that you choose to describe your products because those words aren't just telling your customer what the product is, they're selling it. All right, so I'm going to start with a story that is outside the building and construction industry so you can kind of look at this objectively before we dive into words that you might be using. So in the 1980s, Diet Coke was dominating the market. It was super popular across all demographics. But slowly by slowly, as we came into the 2000s, the early 2000s, the word diet started to feel dated and feminized. All of a sudden, men did not want to be seen ordering diet anything. And the younger generation started to associate diet with restriction and body image guilt. And this started to actually show in the sales of Diet Coke. And so the solution that Coca-Cola came up with is that they created Coke Zero. Same exact product, zero sugar and low calorie soda. But then that switch of the name diet to zero made a huge difference because now the word zero feels more like a choice. It feels more like control was handed back to the consumer. Zero felt more like freedom. And again, this showed in the sales numbers. When Coca-Cola did a research study, they found that Coke Zero was popular again across all demographics. What this shows here is that words drift in meaning over time. In the 1980s, diet was actually a smart choice. It was a disciplined choice. It was associated with being modern and progressive. But as time went by, it started to have these negative associations with it of restriction and body image issues and things that were joyless. And all that Coca-Cola did was change that one word, and that made the difference between a product that was on the verge of dying to a product that is now popular again without changing anything at all about the actual product. Another example is the word economy. In the 1950s, the aviation industry was kind of a luxury thing. Air travel was more for rich people. But then as time went by, the airlines kind of found a way to include more consumers. So they created a product that was called economy class. And economy class was supposed to be more inclusive. It was supposed to be for the people that are interested in travel, in discovering new places, without all of the frills of luxury, without all of the extras that came with luxury travel. And this was a very popular idea at the time. It was modern, it was progressive, and it was very well received at the time. But as you know, today, that same word economy stands for something completely different. Today, unfortunately, economy class is associated with cramped spaces, no legroom, and bottom tier service. And this is across the board in different industries. When you're offered the economy class, you automatically think that you're getting the bare minimum. So that word economy went from meaning efficient use of resources to the modern meaning of bottom tier, cheap, low quality service. And so today, even the airlines are trying to distance themselves from the word economy. They're trying to create these other classes that they're calling premium economy or basic economy, because they're also understanding that that word has evolved in meaning. Another word that I can give an example of is the word chemical. In the past, when a product was created that included the words chemical in it, it just meant that it had been created by someone that was an expert in that field, that knew how to put together different substances to create a formulation that solved a problem. And back then, it was a welcome solution. But today, that same word chemical, if you were to create a product and say that this product has been created using chemicals, it now sounds like it's artificial and toxic and dangerous. A word that started out as neutral has now gained all of these negative associations. And the brands that are starting to feel the effect of these negative associations, you can tell that they're starting to rebrand their products. They're now starting to use words like formulation or molecules or active ingredients just to avoid using the word chemical, because it is now loaded with all these negative associations. And so this same thing is also happening in the building materials industry. And today I want to help you see how certain words that you're using might be hurting your sales, whether you know it or not. So let's start and go over the danger words in the building materials industry. Now, I want to start by saying that these words, in fact, most of the time, these words are technically accurate. If you think about the logical and grammatical use of these words, you are using them correctly. This is not the grammar police. As I talked about earlier, it is the perception of the words that you're using that matters in a marketing perspective. You don't have to change the way you actually talk to customers when you're talking to them face to face, or when they're in the shop, or even if the customer brings it up themselves because they inferred that meaning from what you actually said. We're strictly talking about the words that you use in your marketing material, in your website, in your emails, in your LinkedIn posts, in your brochures, anything that goes into your trade show stand. This is where you really need to pay attention to word choice when it comes to describing your product or your brand. All right, so we're gonna start off strong with the word that literally makes me cringe when I see it associated with the building materials industry. And the reason it makes me cringe is because it's just such a common word, and it makes so much sense in context in the way that it's used. But at the same time, it is such a dangerous word for you to use in relation to selling building materials. And that word is convenient. Convenient and convenience has come to mean less than whole. It's come to mean reduced effort and less complete solutions. For example, a convenience store means a less whole version of a grocery store. You expect that a convenience store is not going to have as many options as are available in the grocery store. The same applies to when a product is described as convenient to use. That phrase implies a shortcut or something less substantial. For example, a wet wipe is convenient to use for cleaning something, but it is not a whole solution. It is not as substantial as using soap and water. When things are marketed as convenience foods, it has the connotation that it is not home cooked. It's a frozen dinner. It works, but it's not as good as the whole solution. So you can see where I'm going with this. If you are describing your building materials as convenient to use, or using the word convenience in any of your marketing materials, I would get rid of that immediately. There's so many other words that can convey the same meaning that also have a more substantial weight to them, that show your customers that the product that you're selling is a whole product. It is something that will 100% carry the weight of the function that it's supposed to accomplish. For example, I have seen this word used in off-site manufactured building materials such as metal framing or wall panels or prefabricated panels, things that are in truth functionally, they are convenient. They are way easier than using the traditional building methods. And so it makes so much sense just to say it is convenient, but at the same time, the weight that is carried by that word also erodes the confidence in that building material, because prefabricated wall panels are a whole solution. And so I can see how you would try to sell it as a convenient solution, which it is, but because of the association of that word, I would immediately remove that from any marketing materials that you're currently using. Now, what words can you replace convenient with? You can refer to the actual outcomes that your contractor will realize as a result of using prefabricated wall panels. For example, you will be able to enclose your building in half the time. The pre-engineered connections eliminate field measuring and thus save you time. You can also refer to the savings when it comes to labor or storage costs or site management. All of those things that the contractor is going to infer as convenience without you necessarily throwing that word into your marketing. All right, another word is fast or faster. As we talked about, construction industry professionals are extremely risk averse. And so if you have created a product, or if you're selling a product that is objectively faster, either it's faster drying, faster installation, performs faster, speed alone is not going to be the way to market that product. Anytime you introduce speed into any construction process, you instantly increase suspicion. The questions that come up are, what are you cutting back on? What steps are you skipping? Why are you rushing? What are we sacrificing in exchange for speed? And so if you want to market a product whose primary value is that it performs faster or can be installed faster, then you want to choose words that imply speed without necessarily saying that it's faster. And the best way to do that is to actually quantify the speed. So rather than say the concrete is going to dry faster, then you can say the concrete is going to dry within X amount of time, as compared to this other product that dries in this amount of time. And so allow the contractor to infer the fact that it is faster, that it's going to save them time, that it's going to be more convenient without necessarily putting those words in your marketing. Any words that are going to indicate that your product performs consistently, that there is some predictability and there is control over the schedule, then those are the words that you want to use. Words that indicate to the contractor that this material compresses time without sacrificing quality. You can accelerate the installation while still maintaining building codes or building standards. And so that way you're answering that question that's going to come up in the back of their mind before they even have an opportunity to ask it. Okay, up next is the word simple or simplified. And this is another one that is very commonly used and with the best of intentions. But unfortunately, it backfires because it makes professionals feel undervalued. People that have spent decades in construction or any amount of time, if they have earned a certain expertise, they have an understanding that there is nothing simple about construction. And so even if you have, again, objectively created a simple method or a simple installation or something that is simple to use, I would stay away from using that word. There's so many other ways to describe a process or a tool without necessarily calling it simple. No one appreciates a dumbed down version of anything. There are some industries where the word simple is welcomed. In technology, for example, where everything has just become so complicated, it is appreciated when something comes in that's simple. But in the construction industry, simple is not welcomed in the same way. And so what are some other ways to describe something that is simple or simplified? You can say it reduces the steps. You used to be able to complete this in 10 steps, and now you can complete it in 8 steps. Or however it is that you want to describe the fact that it has made the process in itself shorter in terms of the time that it takes. then you can go ahead and describe it that way without using the word simple or simplified. You can also describe other things that it eliminates that are not necessarily steps in the process. If it eliminates unnecessary rework, if it is pre-built or pre-engineered so that certain steps are no longer necessary, then that is language that you can use. Pre-engineered, prefabricated. Those are safer words to use that still imply the same completeness and the same rigor in terms of the solution that you're offering without necessarily making it feel like it has been dumbed down. All right, the next danger word to use in your marketing is kind of obvious, but I'm still going to say it because I've seen people use this word to describe building materials, which is crazy to me. And that word is budget friendly or affordable. We all know that there is nothing budget friendly or affordable in construction. Even when the cost is reduced, construction is still an expensive affair. Even with discounts or subsidies or rebates, there is nothing affordable about construction anywhere. So anytime that you imply that there's some kind of budget or affordability in construction or building materials, you're immediately implying that a shortcut has been taken, or that someone is not getting the full experience, or that they're getting cheap materials, cheap installation, something that will break within a small period of time. Even people who do not have a lot of money or a lot of resources do not want to live in a house that is described as budget friendly, just because of the association of that word. There might be an objective way to reduce costs when it comes to building materials, but there's other ways that we can describe that cost reduction without implying that they are getting an inferior product. And like we have discussed before, you can actually quantify what it is that they are saving without necessarily saying that it is budget friendly, without necessarily saying that it's the cheaper option. You can quantify the amount of money that they're saving, the amount of time that they're saving, the amount of headaches that it will take off of their budget, or any other way to say that this is going to impact your pocket in a friendlier way without necessarily using those words that reduce kind of the meaning or the efficacy of the material that they're buying. You can compare side to side and say that this is a new material that we have come up with, and compared to, what you would traditionally build a house with, this is going to save you $7,000. Or this is a new method of installation that in the past you would have to go through all of these steps and pay this amount of money, but now we're saving you X amount of dollars. All right, last but certainly not least is the word innovative or revolutionary or cutting edge. And I am fully aware that there are truly cutting edge solutions that have been developed within the last few years that are really advancing the building and construction space. However, when we use those words to describe building materials, especially if they are the fundamental materials such as concrete or steel or glass or stone, what contractors are hearing is risky and unproven. They're hearing that this material does not have a track record. This material has not stood the test of time. They're also hearing that they're going to be the guinea pig, that they are the test dummies for using this product. The worst thing that you want to invoke in contractors is uncertainty. You do not want them to feel any amount of doubt when it comes to the material that they're using. And so in these situations where you have objectively invented something that is going to change the game when it comes to either the actual material itself or the way that it's installed, it is better to show proof first of what you're selling before you call it revolutionary, before you call it an innovation. And again, you want to avoid those specific words and use other words that are going to imply that meaning, and let the person that's buying, let the contractor or the developer or the builder say that, hey, this is innovative, this is revolutionary, this is going to change the game. But do not put those words front and center of your messaging. What you want to put front and center is the proof, is the test, is the case studies, things that are going to build confidence and build trust before you call it revolutionary. Some of the better alternatives are the words proven or engineered to standard, engineered to code, tested, field tested, backed by these organizations, or earned these certificates. Those attributes that show confidence and that show trust up front are going to be way better when it comes to sales and when it comes to adoption than any other word that is going to make it feel risky or make it feel like the person that's buying it is the first person to use that product. And so to wrap this up, let's talk about the core principles that I want you to take away from this video. It's not just about eliminating these words from your vocabulary, because you are still going to use other words that imply convenience, that imply speed, that imply ease of use. But you always want to pair those with confidence builders. Thinking in terms of the fact that you're talking to people that are very risk averse, people that are going to be triggered by anything that implies that your product is not tested, or that your product is cheap, or that your product is not going to stand the test of time. You want to make sure that you're always layering that with confidence builders. Any kind of certificates or case studies or associations that have endorsed your product. Anything that you can add to your marketing that shows that this is an innovative product. However, it has been fully tested. It has been put through all of these standards. It had passed the code. This is a whole solution. It is not just something that was rushed into production and you're just trying to get people to buy it. And again, this is not about being the word police. This is not about restricting the vocabulary that you use to describe your products. If you have the customer in front of you and you're just having a discussion and you happen to say that the product is convenient, there's nothing wrong with that. It is the words that you primarily use to market your products in your marketing materials. Anything that goes into your website, anything that goes into LinkedIn, anything that goes into either social media, into print materials that are outward facing that you hope are going to get you new customers. You want to be very intentional about the language that you use to describe your brand and your product in those materials, in that context. Because these words are going to make the difference between your customer feeling confident and empowered to buy your product and your customer having their spidey senses come up and feeling like this is a risky decision or this is a decision that I might regret later. Everyone knows that there is nothing fast, easy, or convenient about building, about construction, about anything in the industry. So think about your consumer, your contractors, developers, subcontractors. Think about them and how they evaluate their work and their products. And whenever you're choosing words to market your product, think about how they react to those words and any connotations that have slowly developed over time that are associated with those words. Like we talked about economy class. You do not want to associate your product with economy class because that implies that it is a bottom tier, they'll get poor service, it will probably not be a whole solution. And if you are not aware of the association of these words, or if you're just using these words because they make the most sense in context and they make the most sense to describe your product, you are losing sales without you knowing it. You are losing millions of dollars worth of deals because of single words that you could change or that you could tweak in order to build more confidence rather than erode trust. It's not nitpicking, it's positioning. It is powerful positioning that sells.